If you want to name an action flick from the 80s or 90s, you'll have to include Van Damme. However, his star power waned with the years, and he eventually found himself in the obscure direct-to-DVD industry. Watching today's video will allow you to uncover long, hidden details about this action star. Come with us as we uncover Jean-Claude Van Damme's true tale. Hollywood has no living action star except Jean-Claude Van Damme. Van Damme has never strayed from his martial arts training, which he began when he was 10 years old in Brussels, Belgium. Although he aspired to be an action hero, he never warmed up to the moniker muscles from Brussels, which he had gotten since he thought it sounded more crabby than everyone else. At the age of 10, Van Damme's father rejected him, setting the stage for his life tale. Because his father felt he needed to help young Jean-Claude become a man despite his frail frame, lack of coordination, and lack of concentration, he enrolled him in karate classes. He did, in fact, toughen up. He immersed himself in rigorous weightlifting, taekwondo, kickboxing, and Muay Thai training. He began to get recognition in karate tournaments at the tender age of 15. Van Damme was more than just a martial artist, though. Ballet was another unexpected area of interest for him. While her peers were busy with their usual high school pursuits, Van Damme enrolled in ballet courses when she was 16 years old. He famously said, "If you can survive a ballet workout, you can survive any sport." This was in reference to his belief that ballet was one of the most difficult sports. He honed his balance, precision, and flexibility via 5 years of dance, which were crucial for capturing the scenes he needed to portray on screen. Van Damme's interests in endurance sports included ballet, karate, and bodybuilding, among others. When he was a teenager, he took up weightlifting as a sport. He went on to become the bodybuilding equivalent of Mr. Belgium. It was expected that Van Damme would become famous for his ballet, karate, and bodybuilding techniques, which led to his knockout punches in both the movies and real life. Meeting the renowned Chuck Norris was a blessing for young Jean-Claude Van Damme in 1982 and 1983. Van Damme aspired to be a famous martial arts fighter and movie star when he was a delicate Belgian working as a bouncer at Norris restaurant. Norris was so impressed with Van Damme's performance that he asked him to be a part of his stunt crew for an upcoming picture. This was the opportunity that the young Van Damme had hoped for, even though it was a small part. But it wasn't a picnic. Van Damme made his big screen debut in 1986's No Retreat, No Surrender, directed by Corey Yuen, playing the role of Russian villain Ivan. The media attention he received from this role set the stage for his subsequent achievements. Van Damme narrates the fictitious biography of Frank Dux in the 1988 martial arts film Bloodsport, which he co-starred in with the Smirnoff crew. During his prime, which spanned the late 80s and early 90s, Van Damme had an appearance in this film. Cyborg 1989, Kickboxer 1989, Lionheart 1990, and Double Impact 1991 are among his all-time classics that he made during this period. One of his most well-known films, Universal Soldier, was released in this year of his career. But as mentioned before, Van Damme's triumph on the global stage was fleeting. Perhaps it was the 1994 film in which Van Damme played the lead role in Street Fighter that hinted at the end of the hot streak. Van Damme's severe cocaine addiction made filming a challenging ordeal. As an occasional actor, he had a few films that came out in the years that followed, but none of them were as well received or critically acclaimed as his early works. The public viewed Jean-Claude Van Damme through the lens of a Hollywood-made celebrity. He was in the prime of his career in life when he was in his mid-30s, but he was still vulnerable due to his battle with substance abuse. Van Damme fell prey to that habit just like many other artists of his time. His reported cocaine consumption of 10 grams daily was based on his weekly expenditure of $10,000. Because to his excessive drug usage he was a pain to collaborate with, as was seen throughout the tumultuous development of Street Fighter. Instead of terminating his employment, the producers decided to hire a babysitter to monitor him. However, this strategy backfired when the babysitter began to engage in his vices with him. His vices extended beyond cocaine, though. Like many others, Van Damme struggled with alcohol and pharmaceutical drugs. The latter had an effect on his drinking habits and the fallout from his DUI arrest in Hollywood. The results were a fine of $1,200, a 90-day license suspension, and 3 months of probation. He was admitted to a rehabilitation center after a period of substance usage, but he was unable to remain there for very long. At this time, even a small amount of the chemical was ineffective against him. Van Damme's career was in jeopardy as his personal life was also in shambles. Van Damme had 2 addictions, as if abusing substances wasn't bad enough. Women. When it comes to celebrity romances, action star Jean-Claude Van Damme isn't the only one making waves. One may conclude that his love life has been an emotional roller coaster after 5 marriages. His marital drama began in 1980 with his marriage to Maria Rodriguez, but it ended 4 years later when his fortunes changed. His acting career was taking off when he wed Cynthia Derderian, but his marriage was short-lived and ultimately ended in divorce. Still, love was something Van Damme never gave up on. Gladys Porchig's, a woman with an acting and bodybuilding background, was his second wife. On the other hand, their marriage ran into some trouble, especially when rumors of adultery started circulating during filming of Universal Soldier. Even still, in 1994, Van Damme went on to his 4th unsuccessful marriage, this time to Darcy Lapierre. There have been several scandals and controversies involving Van Damme's private life over the years. The rumors surrounding his alleged affair with Kylie Minogue, his film partner, were one of the most publicized scandals involving him. She said he was having an extramarital affair with the singer. Nevertheless, he steadfastly denied it for a long time. It wasn't until he brought up an affair he had with Kylie that he finally admitted to it, praising her appealing beauty and characterizing it as wonderful lovemaking. While having an affair with Kylie Minogue, Van Damme was unaware that Darcy Lapierre was seeing another man. He was no stranger to espionage-like adventures, however, since Darcy had been his mistress during his first marriage. Even more stunning is the fact that Van Damme had an affair with Kylie when his wife Darcy was pregnant, which happened early in their marriage. He was unsupportive and continued his previous ways of behaving. Leaving his wife behind, he went to Thailand to film action flicks and enjoy the adoration of his groupies. After returning home, Van Damme continued his life as a husband and parent, while Darcy filed for a divorce after 3 years of being unhappy in the marriage. However, infidelity was not the sole reason their marriage dissolved. According to Darcy's testimony, Van Damme's verbal and physical abuse against her reached a boiling point. For example, she was once the victim of an assault that left her seriously wounded and requiring hospitalization. She hadn't been on it since this. Under the pretense that she was terrified of him, Darcy went ahead and obtained a protective order against him. Darcy went ahead and divorced after just a year of marriage, demanding full custody of their young son, $300,000 in court fees, and child support of $150,000 per month. Van Damme was prepared to go through another marriage, even though it would normally not be considered. After the divorce, he shocked everyone by getting back together with Gladys Porchig's, one of his ex-wives. Their 1987 wedding was the first of many, but following Van Damme's 3rd infidelity, the couple decided to call it quits. It wasn't a pleasant marriage, and Van Damme eventually reconciled with Gladys and wedded her. Where love is claimed to have been granted a second chance, which is typically the most enjoyable part of the story. The scandals surrounding Van Damme's marriage have divided opinion. Another controversy involving Jean-Claude Van Damme surfaced in 2009. He met a young Ukrainian woman in a Thai private club while he was married to Gladys, his 5th wife. He frequently visited this club for his adulterous activities. Immediately captivated, the two had an affair, and Van Damme would secretly fly to Ukraine to visit her. In order to keep their connection out of the spotlight, the woman even pretended to be his secretary at private gatherings. But the truth came out in the end, endangering Van Damme's family life as it does with most clandestine affairs. His infidelity was exposed by his wife Gladys, who initiated the divorce proceedings once more. For a long time, the affair had continued. Although Van Damme had strong love for the Ukrainian woman, he decided to put his family first. Curiously, Gladys chose to provide him a second opportunity, but with a condition. Rather than acknowledge his infidelity, she insisted on receiving a new mansion and other expensive presents. Following his wife's recommitment, Van Damme ended his affair. Nevertheless, it appears that Van Damme's nomadic lifestyle was far from finished. Recent years have seen Van Damme embroiled in yet another scandal, this time involving a somewhat younger woman at a Brussels-based exclusive champagne bar. They struck it off, and the fearless Van Damme invited the lady to his house. In response to her rejection, he persisted in finding a new meeting spot and refused to let the idea die. It has long been known that Van Damme has sat atop the ladies' man billboard, and despite being in his 60s, he never gets tired of the adulation women shower him with. But this episode showed his egotistical and conceited side, which could lead to questionable actions, especially when he feels rejected. Despite his tough demeanor on screen, the neurotic field dump has been a constant source of psychological conflict for Van Damme. Among the most horrific moments was when Van Damme dragged a woman to a public lavatory in spite of her denial, imposing himself on her. It reaches a breaking point when he insists on seeing a woman against her will. Thankfully, the woman had the option to flee and inform the proper authorities about what had happened. But she was frightened. This, however, was not an isolated incident. About a year after that, Van Damme was once again in the center of controversy, this time for allegedly luring a woman to a hotel room and raping her with the help of two other men. Meanwhile, the two fellow countrymen carried on with their respective tasks. At the episode's end, there was a hint that the 41-year-old Van Damme might have let his action hero character control his everyday behavior, maybe while under the influence of alcohol. Nonetheless, Van Damme's problems pertained to both his romantic relationships and his cycling. Van Damme's Bloodsport kicking imitator Frank Dux was the subject of legal disputes the following year. Dux took Van Damme to court because the actor had failed to compensate him for his work on the 1996 film The Quest. Claiming that the superstar couldn't even execute a forward roll, he had the gall to undermine Van Damme's martial arts prowess. Negative self-inflicted consequences would follow. This wasn't the first time anybody doubted Van Damme's abilities. The controversy and speculation surrounding the action hero were further fueled when Siegel later downplayed Van Damme's championship expertise. Van Damme was able to emerge from the legal battles and the media frenzy relatively unscathed. Nothing ever came of the case that Dux filed. Van Damme was found not guilty by a jury. In addition to his external struggles, such as his confrontations with Galt, Van Damme also had to deal with his inner struggles, such as the fallout from his popularity, his drug addiction, and his disordered personal life. Post-Time Cop glory, Jean-Claude Van Damme's ego became front and center. He felt he was worthy of more money, therefore he declined a $36 million offer for 3 films. "I was totally screwed up, I made a terrible error, and I was on the Hollywood blacklist for years," he confessed while reflecting on this time. He was known to be a pain to collaborate with. Reportedly, he knocked out co-star Peter Cunningham twice while filming No Retreat, No Surrender. Even after only 2 days on Predator, his behavior was brought to light by his departure. Unfortunately, Van Damme's limited role and lack of opportunity to showcase his martial arts skills left him feeling unsatisfied after being cast to play the title character. Noting ... My feet were in the cast of the Alien, my hands were in the forearms, my head was in the neck. I was moving everything with cables. He characterized the costume as unsafe and unwieldy. It was the kind of dress that made you feel vulnerable and perhaps dangerous. At first, Van Damme was planned to wear a skin-tight leotard while playing the part of a hybrid human-animal in Predator. The finished product, which included an uncomfortable mask and breathing tube, made him unhappy. He recalled that for at least 20 minutes I was covered in the cast and they inserted something in my mouth that looked like a breathing tube. What I began to fear, my friend advised me to wriggle my finger and she would remove the boiling liquid. I did what she said, but they said no, give it 5 more minutes. In spite of everything, Van Damme was able to land one of his most famous parts in Bloodsport after leaving Predator. Jean-Claude Van Damme's meteoric ascent and fall from fame ranks among Hollywood's most illustrious action heroes. Universal Studios, enamored by his kung fu prowess and box office success, extended an enticing deal to him during the height of his career, offering $12 million per picture for 3 films. Instead, Van Damme becomes even more confident and raises the fight stakes. He fearlessly requested twice the first amount, assuming he should earn as much as Jim Carrey, the best comic in Hollywood at the time. Studios at Universal were taken aback. They just hung up the phone and laughed it off instead of negotiating. For Van Damme, this was a watershed moment in his career. Once a popular star in Hollywood, the famed action hero was banned from the industry after word of his terrible behavior spread. After a while, the offers stopped coming in, and he was only linked to low-budget pictures that bombed at the box office. Both Van Damme's professional and personal lives were in such a sorry shape and were only getting worse. Not long after, he began driving irresponsibly, crashing into clubs, and even attacking paparazzi. On the brink of succumbing to substance abuse, fast deterioration was besetting the once brilliant star. However, Van Damme was battling more than just his career and drug addiction. He had a serious medical condition that he was ignoring in private. Van Damme's behavior and erratic mood swings were finally explained by his diagnosis of rapid cycling bipolar illness. Up until this point, the patient had shown no signs of illness. But its presence was a major factor in his issues, such as substance abuse and periods of disorientation. Once Van Damme received his diagnosis and began therapy, which included mood-stabilizing drugs, he was able to regain control of his life. Van Damme was quite open and honest about his struggles with bipolar disorder and how he dealt with them during the interviews. Even in the film JCVD, he conveyed the idea of a man weighed down by the weight of fame and his own vices. In looking back on his journey, Van Damme exposed how low he had sunk. At that point in my life, I had no purpose. Nothing was making me enthusiastic. Next, you need to get a sense of self-worth. As time goes on, you start to value every part of yourself. You have to fix your internal issues. The medicines aren't the problem. With a resolve to start over, Van Damme kicked his cocaine habit. Also began to take chances in pursuit of a more fulfilling existence. His life is an inspiring tale of redemption and triumph. Everybody has to work out their skeletons and face fights in real life, even the macho so-called action heroes. As depicted in his film roles, Jean-Claude Van Damme is a unique example of a Hollywood success story that includes a fall and a subsequent rise. After Van Damme and his wife become estranged, he hits rock bottom and comes to terms with his life circumstances and his actions. He sensed that he needed to change the direction of his life and take the wheel now. He skipped the typical stars go-to-rehab route in favor of a more extreme approach to recovery. He opted for rigorous physical exercise as a means of combating the mental and physical aftereffects of his previous life, and he abstained from all other vices without medical supervision. Although it was a specific kind of method, it was incredibly rudimentary. Still, it worked like magic. Van Damme rethought his professional strategy when he had gotten himself in shape and was able to return to the market. He was more than eager to return to the director's chair. Beyond the intense fighting and powerful kicks, this man wished to reveal to the world what Jean-Claude Van Damme is truly about. He began by assuming smaller but more significant duties. Among his many accomplishments is lending his voice to Kung Fu Panda 2 and providing viewers with a glimpse into his private life through the reality show Jean-Claude Van Damme. This realistic depiction of his life, which took place off-screen, received rave reviews and set the stage for his comeback to the big screen. But he did return, this time with a role in The Expendables 2, reuniting him with some of Hollywood's biggest names and throwing him right back into the action. Everyone was reminded of why Jean-Claude Van Damme was a superstar in this blockbuster film, which earned $315 million worldwide. There is a life-size bronze sculpture of him in his hometown, displaying classic Atia Korean martial arts combat postures to commemorate his achievements for future generations. In addition to being a fitting memorial, the statue stood as a testament to Van Damme's strength and lasting impact. However, Van Damme should not slack off. In order to make the unique, the man went above and beyond. Even after going through that humiliation, he showed that his love for film was unwavering by directing, writing, producing, and editing another film, Frenchie. Van Damme has finally found his stride, and now is the moment for audiences to enjoy the films he directed. True action movie icon he has tried his hand at it all, be it Bloodsport, Kickboxer, or any film he has attempted.